What's up, everybody? Matthew here with Unbranded Christianity, and we are continuing our series on God and money. This is chapter 5, Receive the Gift. What does that mean? Let's talk about it. So today in chapter 5, we're talking about receive the gift. And this comes out of a history of just kind of following the Lord and seeing how He provided. Gift giving is and should be a regular practice in the Christian experience. And I will kind of lay the groundwork for you and then explain to you the process. So, back in 2010, fresh out of college, I found myself not making a lot of money. I had a Christian education degree, which is worth $20 on the streets. And yeah, wasn't making a whole lot. I was working part-time at a coffee shop, and I was volunteering basically full-time as an intern at a church. And I wasn't making a whole lot, and staying with my sister and her husband at the time, and they were very generous. Roof over my head, a place to sleep, a place to eat, a place to rest. And when I wasn't sleeping there, then I was at the church or working. Quite simply put, I wasn't making a whole lot of money, and I drove this big SUV. It's a Lincoln Aviator, 7 seats, 3 rows, just by myself, and not the best gas mileage. And I was driving way more than I needed to every day of the week. 7 days a week, I was going about 30 to 35 minutes one way, which eats up in gas. And there are several times where I didn't really have gas money to make it to work or make it to church. And the craziest thing started to happen. I was there and I felt like I was following I felt like I was exactly where Jesus wanted me to be. He had led me to Oklahoma City. He had led me to a specific church. And I was just serving in every capacity that I could to respond to what Jesus was asking me to do. And I remember there was a day where I literally did not have gas money. And in the mail, a letter came from a friend of mine from college. She was a close friend at the time, but she lived out in Oregon, and I didn't even know she had the address I was staying at. And in the mail comes a check for like $170 and a note that said, basically, there's a Bible verse from Romans. And then there was a note that said, I felt like God said to send you some money. Wow, that's extremely humbling. Fast forward to the same season. There was a guy at church who he came up to me one day and he did the old handshake. And what he did, he stuck me $100 bill, and he said, I just felt like the Lord said to give you money. Now, mind you, every time this happens, I'm almost out of gas in my car. And if I don't have that, I can't go to work, etc. And it just shows up. And it was really hard because there's a thing of pride when receiving gifts from people, especially when it's monetary or like a provision thing. Fast forward a few years, a couple years, and quite literally, I was wanting to go on a ministry trip, and a friend of mine literally gave me a car to sell and have enough money to go on a ministry trip. So I drove the car for a while, and then I did end up selling it. Someone gave me a car. What? And then lastly, This even just happened just a few years ago. I got in a little bit of a pinch financially, and a person gave me $2,000 to help get me out of the pinch. It's just another reiteration of provision. And that's it. So after all these like encounters, and that's not all of the journey, there's some other things in there where I just would begin to ask God for, provision essentially, and then things would happen. And just trusting. So that began this thought process of receiving the gift. Very simply put, quickly realizing that God provides. That's chapter 1. If you haven't watched that, go watch it. Of God and Money, chapter 1, God provides. That is the overarching, that's the foundation to everything we're talking about. And then second to that is be a funnel. That's chapter 2. We should be vessels that allow us to have resources that flow through us to meet another person's needs, and not be a bucket where we just keep it all to ourselves. So God provides, and be a funnel, chapter 1 and chapter 2. All those in play with these other chapters rocking and rolling, quite simply receiving the gift. When someone comes to you and they want to give you and bless you with something, just say yes. And this is why, because God provides. And he expresses his love to us through other people on the regular. There's times where God speaks to us directly, and there's times that God speaks to us through others. In fact, I'd say more times he'll speak to us through others than specifically from him himself. And when a person is moved to give something to you generously, whether that's straight up cash or something that will benefit you, like a gift of something you need or something sometimes even you want, that is the love of God bubbling up. That's God's love for you being expressed through someone else's pocket. And that's a place where we can team with God. So one of the previous chapters on this series is generosity being the greatest law for resources, and generosity is the greatest. I think that's chapter 4. Yeah, it is. It's chapter 3. Generosity is the greatest. And in that, when that generosity is the greatest law, and whenever a person is moved to give generously, they're moved by love. It's this bubbling up of God's provision, his love for his children, and it's their teaming with to make that happen. So when we receive the gift, we are receiving the love of God from God through his partners. And when a person is motivated, just say yes. Just say yes to the gift. And then turn and thank God. And thank the person who's giving to you as being faithful to what God is laying in their heart. So, previous chapter, generosity is greatest. As we're moved by generosity, as we're moved by doing that, we begin to be formed in the place of generosity, and it becomes second nature, so that not only are we following God's provision and generosity, rather we're being formed to look like God in his generosity. We're being formed in becoming more like him. So that's the part of being moved by generosity. And then on the other end, it's like two sides of the same coin. The other end is to receive the generosity. Because anytime we receive a gift, especially whenever it's financially driven, when we receive, we are experiencing and being reminded of a couple of things. One, that God provides, and two, that we too are supposed to be funnels. So God is the provider, and we are partners with that. And anytime we receive a gift, we're being literally shown this person is being a funnel, which God provisions flows through and comes to me. And it's also a reminder. Not only is it showing you that it's taking place to your benefit in the moment, but it's also showing you that you also are to flow and be in funnel to others. Anytime we receive a gift, it's a reminder that God is generous, but also that we too are to be generous. That when we receive gifts, we give gifts. Freely receive, freely give. So, chapter 5 of God and Money, receive the gift. It's very simple. When someone's heart bubbles with love, the love of God, oftentimes it will lead to generosity, generous giving to you. When someone does this, receive and acknowledge a few things that God provides and that we can team with provision and say thank you. And then go and do likewise. Anytime we perform a miracle of any kind, it's just as much for us to remember the way that Jesus functions as it is to bless the others. It is a recurring, it's a closed circuit, full of life, of course, but it's giving miracle, receiving a reminder. Giving miracle, receiving a reminder. And we'll talk about miracles later on, but tonight, receive the gift because it's a gift from God. It's his love bubbling out of himself and from his partners. Okay? And if you don't, for 1 minute, if you don't believe that someone giving you a gift, their cash, or something purchased with their cash, if you don't think that's not, if you don't think that that's a miracle, we got work to do because people love some money. That's it. Chapter 5, receive the gift. When you receive the gift, you receive God's love and you're reminded to give it also. Okay, that's it. Chapter 5 in the books of God and Money, receive the gift. Have a great time, and thanks again for tuning in to Unbranded Christianity.